Hello, hello, hello. Kay Murray and Luis Miguel Echegaray here with you, and we will be joined in just a moment by Shaka Hislop. Rob Dawson's going to be with us too. Mikel Arteta running down the touchline. Jubilant scenes at the Emirates. It can only mean one thing. Arsenal have just put in an epic comeback win against Bournemouth after going 2-0 down. They end up winning 3-2 in the 97th minute, thanks to a man who made all the difference when he came on, Reiss Nelson. Sets up the goal for Ben White to get Arsenal back in it, Luis, and then scores the winner in the 97th minute. What a game it ended up being.
Kay Murray, I know the Oscars are next weekend. Is there enough time to file this in for best movie of the year? I mean, once again, listen, we cover a lot of leagues here on ESPN, right? La Liga, Serie A, Europe, South America. The Premier League is just the most entertaining, thrilling narrative that you can get hands down. And I feel like every champion needs this storyline. They need to be down 2-0 and then come back to 3-2, or like in the final seconds to do something, right? We've seen it in the past. And Arsenal today, as you mentioned, my goodness. And a game, by the way, that started 9 seconds in with a goal, right? One of the fastest I've ever seen. And then ends, as you said, with Reiss Nelson finishing it with basically the last hit. And what a hit that was. What an unbelievable match. And when you look back and think a champion needs to do many things over the course of a season, this is exactly it. What a ridiculous match. What a ridiculous way for Arsenal to get 3 points. Amazing.
Once again, as well, we're seeing all the squad players playing their part in this game because things going against Arsenal, losing Leandro Trossard, that's obviously not going to go in their favour, going 2 goals behind. Did you get the sense, though, Luis? There was I think maybe there was a moment when you thought, oh, gosh, especially after City winning earlier today. But then did you get the sense that this isn't over yet? Not with this Arsenal side.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely... it had shades of that, right? And part of it, there's a doubt because Arsenal have such a young squad and you think, can they do this? Can they overcome it? But you would think at home, at Emirates, with everything that's at stake, as you said, as Man City won earlier on against Newcastle United, and we'll talk about that later with our pal Rob Dawson, you did think, oh my God, can they do this? Surely they have to do this. But I tweeted like Bournemouth when they were, not even when they were 2-0 up, 1-0 up, I was like, Bournemouth are playing really well. And can they sustain this? But there's just too much talent and the squad depth. And Reiss Nelson coming in with 30 minutes left was a key component. Look, listen, when you win matches like this, it's not just about the individual. And obviously full credit to Reiss Nelson because, he did so much, not just with his winning goal, but the one before that with Ben White. But when you want to win like champions, you need a squad. And like you said, it's important to have players off the pitch to deliver. And my God, what a performance. Again, right now I'm going to, because, the Oscars are on ABC, so I'm just going to see if we can file this in Best Movie of the Year. Surely it's even more entertaining than Avatar or anything like that. What a game. What a game.
Let's get Shaka Hislop in, shall we? Because Arsenal back with that 5 points advantage at the top of the table. Shaka, you get the feeling this could be a defining game in the title race this season.
I think without question, come May, if Arsenal are crowned champions, we'll be talking about this. Because let's be honest, given City, how they refuse to go away, just given how good City are, there's every chance that if Arsenal do win the title, it may be 3 points, a 2-point difference. If that, and you look back on this as 3 points gained in the most unbelievable of ways. And this may very well go on to define the rest of Arsenal's season, not just because of what may be the eventual points gap, but because of what it means to a young squad, because of what it means to a team that has shown a softer side to it, yet all of a sudden this Arsenal side, despite their youth, are proving far more resilient than any of the Arsenal teams we've been able to say for quite some time.
So it took them 30 minutes in the end, Shaka, to turn things around and to win this game. How did they do it? Why did it go in their favour like it did?
I'm not quite sure. I'll be honest. Adam was talking about Bournemouth and how good they were, and I'll double down on that. I thought Bournemouth played their part. Get the goal after 9 seconds, one that clearly they were working on the training ground. Took some questionable Arsenal defending to contribute to that, but give Bournemouth their credit. And from there on in, I thought Bournemouth did the basics fantastically well. And when you're a team down the bottom, all you ask is to do the basics well. And I thought Bournemouth did that. Every time they broke with pace. Arsenal were stretched. They seemed desperate at times. And in all honesty, they were lucky to go in at the break at 1-0 down. Now, don't get me wrong, Arsenal dominated possession, as you would expect. We are talking about a team top of the table at home to a team who were in the bottom three. So Arsenal had a lot of possession. They had a lot of opportunities. But truth be told, it never felt as overwhelming as you thought it would be. And give Bournemouth their credit. And then Arsenal's defending again. I'm really not sure how Thomas Partey loses his mark as easily as he does. Bournemouth take full advantage of that. But then again, even in the build up to that corner, Bournemouth, the delivery from the set piece, Bournemouth almost went 2-0 up. They get the corner and they get their just rewards. And that speaks to some of the football that Bournemouth were playing. And at 2-0, I have to say, I thought it was game over. I didn't think Arsenal were coming back. Even when Thomas Partey got one back to make it 2-1, I just thought that Bournemouth was so good, so comfortable in their own skin, in doing what they were doing so well, that I didn't see them coming back. And I thought at times Lady Luck maybe deserted Arsenal a little bit, because at 1-0, Arsenal had a shot for handball that I thought was 100% a penalty. That was not given. There were two other shots, far less convincing. But you don't often survive three close calls, especially one, even if the first was, as in my opinion, a 100% penalty, and somehow you survive that. You see those half calls go against you. And when they don't, I just thought, yeah, that's kind of sums up Arsenal's day. It's going to be long. It's going to be frustrating. We're going to be talking about those missed calls. I didn't think we were talking about an Arsenal win.
Yeah, just very, very quickly to add to just one point that Shaka said, by the way, the goals that Arsenal conceded should be a warning sign for Mikel Arteta, and he should be replaying that tape, K. Murray, all over the week, specifically when they're facing, with all due respect, tougher competition, the Europa League, etc. Right? That goal at the very beginning from kickoff, majestic from from kickoff. What a great style. It's 9-8 players on the left-hand side of Bournemouth's half. Push up towards the box. It goes to the other side to cross in. Right, and that's actually a really good warning sign for Arsenal to say, you got to be way better, either from kickoff or from any kind of set piece. Physicality speaking, from corners and stuff, Arsenal have to do a better job at this, because they're going to be facing tougher competition. If you want to win this Premier League, you got to be ready for that. But, 30 crosses, 30 attempts, about 11 on target, about 375,000 crosses came Murray today from Arsenal. So little by little, they were trying to break it in, and it did happen. But against tougher opposition, it might not have been the similar kind of narrative.
Yeah, maybe I'm a little overconfident in them, just because we've seen what we've seen from them this season. Just had that little taste of maybe there's a story in this to be had, and there was. And I suppose now, Shaka, even with the points, it would have still been a 3-point lead there. Now it's back to 5. It means that when it comes to these games that they've got coming up, they need to ride it out, surely. Well, I'm not saying ride it out. I'm saying weather that storm until they get to City again. If they can have that advantage going into the City game, even getting beaten by City, at least that could be a bit of a free hit, knowing it wouldn't still affect them when it comes to having a points advantage over the closest title rivals.
Absolutely. I don't think Arsenal want to be playing City again with a gap that if City win the game, they go above them. Listen, I think there are a couple of things in Arsenal's favour here. One, they're competing in the Europa League. You'll fully understand if Mikel Arteta makes changes and plays weakened squads in the Europa League and makes the league his sole focus. The other being the other side of that same coin. City and their holy grail, in my opinion, still being around the Champions League. Whether I don't think Pep Guardiola has that same luxury of rotating as much as Arteta may be prepared to do in Europe. So as this run-in comes, as we get closer and closer to the end of the season and games become more intense, legs become a little bit more tired, the stakes become a whole lot higher, not just in winning games, but even drawing games can be telling. I just feel that Arsenal will have that edge. and having shown this kind of backbone that they did today, as I mentioned before, the type of resilience that we've not been able to associate with an Arsenal team for quite some time, I think belief starts to come back into that dressing room. But you need to maintain that little bit of daylight between yourselves and City, because for all that I say, we've seen City do it season in, season out. We know how good they can be. We know that they can run down teams with bigger gaps than this. You take absolutely nothing for granted if you're Arsenal.
You know what? We need to bring in Rob Dawson as we are talking about the title race here, especially after Man City with their win today. Just while I do, before that, Luis, I just want to list some of the games off that Arsenal have got coming up. So Europa League aside against Sporting, they've got Fulham away. Then they're at home to Crystal Palace. They're at home to Leeds. They've got to go to Anfield. They've got to play West Ham away. They're at home to Southampton, and then comes a City game. So there's definitely a potential in some difficult ones along the way there. I suppose they have to take every game as it comes right now.
Yeah, I mean, and I know that you said that, taking Europa League aside, but you kind of have to include that narrative part of it because, the most important thing for Mikel Arteta is health for their squad. They have to remain healthy. Obviously, the likes of Bukayo Saka, and others like Thomas Partey, and at the back, Gabriel, you need to make sure that they stay fit because that Europa League is important midweek kind of thing. But you mentioned all those matches, and West Ham are now in real trouble. They're not going to want to let go on anything. The same with Southampton. Liverpool seem to be picking a little bit of steam, although obviously we haven't included what's going to happen tomorrow against Manchester United. Every game is that Leeds United as well. So every game is going to be very tough. And it's about how healthy they enter that Man City game and how they can make sure that they maintain certain breathing space. And that's going to be massive and very, very important. But make no mistake about it, this game is the kind of confidence builder that can help Mikel Arteta's side progress. But it's also a massive warning sign.
Especially, Rob, when they saw what happened before them. Man City with a 2-0 win against Newcastle. You could say comfortable in the end, really. That's 7 unbeaten for Pep Guardiola's men. Now 3 straight wins in all competitions. It looks as though they are ready to really compete at this stage of the season and make sure Arsenal know that they're not going to give up without a fight.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, isn't it, in these title races that the players and the fans won't have woken up this morning expecting any favours from Bournemouth, but because the Arsenal game has gone the way that it has, I'm sure that the players and the fans will feel a little bit deflated having seen that Arsenal come back to win, particularly after they got their job done against Newcastle earlier in the day. I think if you looked at those fixtures before today, you'd have probably assumed that City were the most likely to drop points and Arsenal would have won comfortably. And in the end, it's not worked out like that. That said, I think City are on a nice little run now. It's 7 unbeaten. They seem to have come through a little bit of a patch where it was a little bit sticky for them. They're getting players back from injury. John Stones was on the bench today. Almeric Laporte was back on the bench today. And also Phil Foden, who scored today, is back in form. So, as much as this is a great day for Arsenal and their title challenge, I think City and Pep Guardiola will feel quite confident heading into a crucial run before the international break.
So, Rob, just to follow up on that then, what do you think it's done psychologically to both sides, given the way that the match days played out for both City and Arsenal?
Well, I imagine that City players and the fans will feel a little bit deflated because they've beaten Newcastle in the morning. They've gone and watched the Arsenal game. They probably thought for a long period of that game that maybe they were going to claw back some points in the title race, that Arsenal were going to drop points in a game that they probably shouldn't have. And now it's the momentum has shifted almost entirely again. That really for Arsenal, that is the type of result that wins titles. That if they had a comfortable afternoon against Bournemouth, they would have been happy and they would have kind of moved on and gone on to the next game. But now the dressing room at the Emirates will be absolutely bouncing. It'll be bouncing in the training ground all this week. And title races can be defined by these little shifts in momentum. It's up to City now to kind of claw that back. I think they played Palace away in their next game, which is a tough game. And actually, Pep Guardiola said in his news conference after the game today that City are entering a period of games that he thought would define their entire season. They've got Palace away in the league, they've got RB Leipzig in the Champions League, and then they've got Burnley at home in the FA Cup, all before the international break. He says that if they don't play well in those 3 games, as far as he's concerned, their season could be over. On the flip side of that, if they do win all those games, play well, and then they go into the international break, he says that he thinks that they've got a great chance of winning all of those 3 trophies. And it's interesting that obviously Arsenal are clear at the top, but they've still got, you mentioned before the run of games that they've got some very, very tough games. They've still got to go to City. They've still got to go to Liverpool. They've still got to go to Newcastle. You know, City may feel deflated today, but they'll look at that fixture list and I think they've got a great chance of overhauling Arsenal, at the top of the league.
Yeah, and by the way, after Man City game for Arsenal, Chelsea, Newcastle United, and Brighton, Shaka Hislop, that's not going to be easy. I guess I throw that question to you as well, my friend, like psychologically speaking, and I guess even more so, let's pretend that they're playing like this week, like later in the week, Man City against Arsenal. Like, what would you say the outcome would be, given what we've seen so far this past weekend?
Given what we see, if for argument's sake they're playing Wednesday or Thursday, I think a lot of momentum are with Arsenal. Now, when you're in that Arsenal dressing room, I think this result feels maybe a whole lot bigger than cynics may want to see it. You come from 2-0 down against a Bournemouth team who are playing fantastically well, and you get a result, and it really does feel huge. If I'm being a little bit cynical here, you're 2 down to a team that are in the bottom 3. You're 2 down to a team that many have as going down. And that shows a vulnerability to Arsenal that maybe we overlooking a little bit here. That is a little bit out of focus given the final result. But if you're Arsenal, you take the momentum, you take the emotion of that win, and you make that count. You know that other teams I think Arsenal are better against teams who come at them a little bit more and are a little bit more open. So there are different ways to spin this. Arsenal top of the team. So while the run in is the run of games to come are difficult, Arsenal top of the league for a reason, because they've done well against everybody regardless of their positions. I think it's a test now. And as Sir Alex Ferguson used to call it, you know, this is the pointy end of the season. This is squeaky bum time. You know, I call on Sir Alex Ferguson because, without question, Mikel Arteta relied on Fergie time to get the win against Bournemouth without any kind of question.
He's never going to admit that, though, Shaka.
Fergie couldn't have done it better.
So let me give you the question that I think most of you might be on the page of at the moment. Are Arsenal title favourites? And if the answer is yes, I need your butt. So I'll start with you, Rob Dawson.
Thank God.
Oh, I don't want to go first.
Well, are they title favourites for you?
They are title favourites because they're clear at the top, but City look very, very ominous. You know, I'm sure that the Arsenal players at the moment won't be worried about City, particularly after such a great win. But City's form, the period of the season that we're in, the fact that they're getting players back from injury, players coming into form. We're used to this stage of the season where City just put their foot down and they reel off 10 wins on the bounce. You know, obviously, you know, what's happened in previous seasons doesn't particularly count to what might happen this season, but they've got that history, that ability to do it. And I still think if I was a betting man and putting money on, I would still fancy City to win. I think Arsenal favourites, but I think City are going to overhaul and win the title.
Luis?
Oh, God. It's going to go against my take, Edito, which I said in October that Arsenal are going to win the league. I think at this point, it's like this. And it's not even because of all the
great... so firm on Arsenal for a long time.
I went like this, Kate. Arsenal's like here. Like
I was so proud to say I said this a long time ago. Arsenal are going to win it.
I'm still there, Kay. Kay, I'm still there. Why are you being mean to me?
Are you doing a Shaka Hislop in the World Cup?
Oh my God, Kay, you're so mean. Arsenal right here. City, like right here. I'm going to tell you something. It's not even the Man City Arsenal game. It's Arsenal's away game at Newcastle United to me. That's going to be very intriguing. I want to see it, depending where Newcastle are in that moment. I, at this point, have Arsenal still winning the league just because of what Rob said, which is like that breathing space that Arsenal had. Had Arsenal dropped points today, that conversation would have been a little bit different. But I think Arsenal at this point, just because, listen, I think that we take for granted a lot of what happens, the intangibles, and that, what kind of like energy and momentum this kind of victory can do for a Premier League team. And I think Arsenal just about has it edged. The Europa League worries me, though, okay, Murray, because I want to make sure for Arsenal fans that no key injuries happen during that time. When you have a squad that young and you add in a continental competition and you're trying to win the Premier League for the first time since the Invincibles, then I worry. But Arsenal, at this point, remain the favorites.
So we're calling
Can I just hold on? Can I just say that's the most unconvincing backing of a team I've ever heard.
I know he was so firm a few weeks back as well, Shaq. He was so proud of himself saying,
so now you know, like when I proposed, now you know when I proposed to my wife, she had to think about it a couple of times.
Goodness me. LME went round the bed trying to figure that one out. Right, let me answer that question for you, Kay. Arsenal are favourites, but I'll give you two buts, which are linked. The first, I always feel it's easier to chase than it is to lead. That leading, and as much as Arsenal have led for as long as they have, leading at this stage of the season is a very difficult ask. One that normally takes a team of experience to do well. Arsenal are favourites, but Manchester City have closed larger gaps with less games in the past. So write them off at your peril.
All right. Well, seeing as though we've put Rob Dawson first on that one, we're going to let him have a little early knock off here. He deserves it. He went first. Rob, we look forward to seeing you. Make sure to go and check out Rob's latest article on what Ten Hag can learn from Jose Mourinho. It is definitely worth a read over on ESPN.com. Chelsea got a win today, guys. 1-0 in the end. Wesley Fofana with the only goal of the only goal of the game. Right now. Very important, given the fact that the pressure on Potter and given the fact that that game against Borussia Dortmund is coming up in the Champions League, Luis.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can wrap it in whatever bow you want. You can add any kind of recap regarding the match. But the most important thing today for Chelsea and Chelsea fans and Graham Potter, as you mentioned, was 3 points. And, I had the game on another screen during the other matches earlier today. And, overall, they deserved the win. And it took a few great stops as well. And defensive stability, and a really tough thing to say for a Leeds United team, but to stop it, because it probably could have been more. But still, though, 1-0 at home. They needed a Fofana goal from a corner, by the way, as well, to make it happen. But it's crucial. We were talking about Arsenal and the momentum that you need when you get this kind of victory. Chelsea just need points. You just need wins. It doesn't matter how they come. Because, Potter's living on thin ice. Todd Boehly spent $400 million during January. They need victories. Borussia Dortmund's coming to town, so they needed to get a victory. And today it happened. So we'll have to wait and see how that develops and when they face tougher competition. But it doesn't matter. 3 points, and that's all what any Chelsea fan cares about right now.
And a goal, Shaka, a goal for Chelsea.
Yeah, a goal from a defender from a set piece, as LME was mentioning.
They all count.
Yeah, they do. And to that point, yes, LME is absolutely right. The 3 points is most important for Chelsea. I thought Chelsea played well. But Mesley in goal for Leeds, I thought he played outstandingly well as well to deny Chelsea. I think for all of Chelsea's good play, the highlight is something that everybody's known probably since the summer. Everybody's known at the very least since November or December. Chelsea need an out-and-out striker. A lot of their football was good, but they're missing that finishing touch. Havertz is good, but he's good at coming from deep, and he's not a 20-goal a season striker. João Felix is good, but same. He's not a 20-goal a season striker. That's what they're missing, and I thought the game today highlighted that. But again, as much as you're celebrating the 3 points, I'll give Chelsea their credit, and we haven't been able to say this an awful lot. I thought they played very well. The caveat to that is the same caveat that I offered Arsenal as a cynic earlier. It's against a team that are very near to the bottom three. So take that for what you like. Can Chelsea produce this kind of performance? The team slightly higher up the table. Recent history says no, but you take each game as it is, and they played well today.
Yeah, looking at it as well, obviously Dortmund played Leipzig in Friday's Bundesliga game. They won that game, but they weren't at their best in the second half. Maybe they took their foot off the pedal somewhat, so that's worth looking at. But no doubt Edin Terzic will be correcting that too, given the fact that they do have the advantage going into this game against Chelsea. What an interesting game that's going to be. As for Spurs, Luis, they lost to Wolves just in a Adama Traore goal. The difference right now in this one, Conte coming back next week, probably about the right time for them as well.
I mean, it's just Tottenham, isn't it? I'm just going to say this. Julian Lopetegui's Wolves are the perfect type of opponent. Sorry, Tottenham are the perfect opponent for Julian Lopetegui and Wolves because they're very patient, very careful. And even though it hasn't been going that well for Julian Lopetegui and Wolverhampton, Tottenham is kind of the best recipe at home. And that's exactly what happened. Speaking, Tottenham had the most shots, the most possession. But again, when you just rely on Harry Kane and Heung-min Son and you have a defensive unit from a Julian Lopetegui squad, then that's what's going to happen. And that goal, by the way, it was Raul Jimenez smash, I believe. It rebounded off the keeper, and Adama Traore just thought, I'm just going to try and smash it and have volley it, and boom, it went, and 1-0. It happened to Wolverhampton. So that's a very big win for them because they're trying to separate themselves from the bottom three. But Tottenham, my goodness. I mean, listen, I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's just, you need these victories to try and get something because obviously the most important for you as a Spurs fan is to get European football, and that's not happening. And they need so much more once again, which is amazing because we keep saying that. But I think Bentancur is a massive absence, of course, and Wolves are happy with those 3 points because getting away from the relegation zone is very important for them.
Yeah, obviously they hit the crossbar a couple of times, did Spurs, but they're going to have to feel, Shaka, that this is a massive opportunity lost, given the fact that Newcastle lost, and there is going to be that battle for fourth spot this season. I think pretty much everyone agrees on the top three, whichever way it shapes up, being the two Manchester sides and Arsenal, and that fourth spot, with it being really up for grabs and no side fighting for it, looking totally convincing right now. This could be a game they look at and think, should have done better here.
Yeah, I think you're being very kind and saying no side looking totally convincing there, Kay. In all honesty, listen, the top three, those three are playing good football. Everybody else is just, let's try to figure this out. Imagine we're talking about a top three race that includes Newcastle, who can't score goals, Spurs, who are awful. At times you watch Spurs and they are just so unconvincing, and then they produce a performance and a result, well, more result than the performance as they did against Chelsea. Imagine we're talking about Liverpool being in the top four race. Liverpool, I can't tell you when last I've seen a Liverpool team look this unconvincing, yet Liverpool are in with a shout to finishing in the top four, and that speaks to the drop off between third and a very tight fourth, fifth, and sixth. For long spells in this Spurs Wolves game, this just looked like a 0-0. Wolves are a team that have struggled to score goals themselves. Diego Costa has to be stretched off, and you just figure that this is going to be a 0-0 as we've seen far too often with Wolves, and way too often with Spurs as well. And then all of a sudden, Traore pops up and gets a goal. Spurs can maybe call themselves unlucky, but at times I thought some of their finishing was a little bit disappointing. I remember one point to Son just about 15 yards out, and I thought in seasons gone by, you would put your mortgage on that hitting the back of the net, but he somehow skied it over the crossbar, and it just kind of sums up a Spurs team that, as Alami said, far too reliant on Son and Kane in the past, and once they are slightly off the boil, a team that just has absolutely no identity. And here we are talking about potential Champions League representatives looking anything but decent teams.
I'm so glad you said the word identity, Shaka Hislop, because it's worth noting. I know that we're about to say goodbye to everybody, but Brighton and Hove Albion, by the way, what a team. I know that West Ham are struggling, but today they took care of business against West Ham. And this is a club that I just absolutely adore the way they handle business. And as Shaka was talking, Kay Murray, they're 8th. But they've only played 23 matches. They've got a couple of games in hand, 3 games in hand to Tottenham, by the way, with 38 points. I mean, never say never. This could be a Brighton side that could push up. I mean, I'm not saying Champions League, but like a European spot. And it's refreshing to see a club who, like, you know, they lost a manager that knew so much about the insights of who they are. You know, all the pressures of losing Moises Caicedo. They re-signed him to a new contract so that he's extending himself for a little bit. And they just do such a good job at knowing exactly that word that Shaka said, identity. Watch out for Brighton because they got a lot more to come before the
And
end
a
of the
brilliant
season.
coach, as all Serie A fans know. Now, we want to make sure that you stay friends with Shaka, bringing up the fact that Newcastle and West Ham haven't had the best of days. But let me just put some predictions to you if I can, guys, because Shaka, you mentioned Liverpool. Obviously, they're at Anfield tomorrow. Luis, I know you're going to be back with the team tomorrow. Right after the conclusion to that game, what's your gut telling you, Shaka?
My gut's telling me 1-1. I just feel with the game being at Anfield, being that derby what it is, I think that gets the Anfield crowd up for this game. I think that gets Liverpool up for this game. That gets Liverpool, and I say this unreservedly, punching above their weight in that, producing a better performance that we've seen for quite some time. Because Manchester United have been very good. So for Liverpool to get a point, I will put it down as punching above their weight, even at home. But I just feel with everything at stake, and in particular the history between these two, that's a little bit telling, that's motivating. I'm sitting on the fence.
All right. I think everyone was on the show as well last night on the FC show, Shaka, so don't worry. What about you, LME?
God, I hate to join the crew, but I agree because I just think that Anfield push will help them. I will say this, though, that Liverpool, it doesn't matter how they start because I think the first 15 minutes, the euphoria of Anfield and everybody up for it, the fact that it's this big game, of course, historically speaking, is going to push on. But like Shaka said, Manchester United have only lost once this year, and the things that they are doing is tremendous. They have an amazing identity. Marcus Rashford, to me, aside from the duo in Napoli, is the best player in Europe. I think they're clicking in every way. Casemiro is one of the best transfers of the season, and I don't think it matters to Ten Hag if it's at Anfield or if it's at Old Trafford. Having said that, aside from that Real Madrid fiasco from Jurgen Klopp's side, since losing at the beginning of February, Liverpool have been looking a little bit better. I just worry about that midfield. That midfield worries me because it's not as strong as it used to be, and it's showing signs of rot. So I'm hoping for a Liverpool perspective that they'll be able to keep up with the likes of Casemiro, of course, Bruno Fernandes, and the absolute fantastic skills of Marcus Rashford. It's going to be a good game, I hope. Hopefully 2-0. That's what I say.
Yeah, make sure to join the guys live right after it tomorrow. And make sure to go and check out Stevie Nicholls' combined 11 between the two sides because he took some heat for it. You're here on YouTube already. Go and check that out. You'll be able to find it very easily. These guys will be back tomorrow. See you then.